personal desire of living in peace and the collective desire of waging war, there is a huge contradiction. And it is the business of spirituality to address this contradiction. And it was keeping in mind that Jesus Christ said, "Blessed are the peacemakers." To make peace, one has to approach this whole business differently from the approach to peace negotiations. Negotiating peace is different from making peace. To make is to cause something to come into being when it does not exist at all. There is not even the foundation. So making peace means building it from the foundation up. So spiritually, it's a radical task, it's a revolutionary task, and indeed, to use conventional words, it is a divine task. It's a very creative, divinely creative task. So every person who is spiritually sensitive to the human predicament feels inwardly urged to be an instrument of peace. We are familiar with that beautiful song written by Saint Francis of Assisi, "Make me a channel of your peace." That's the longing, that's the prayer of a God-conscious, spiritually sensitive, and humanity-loving human being. I have with me Acharya Sri, who has a track record of intervening in situations of conflict and potential holocaust to enable people to be delivered of their fixation with violence, brutality, and to live in harmony and brotherhood. He had been, though a person of Kerala origin, he had been working in other parts of the country. And a few years ago, he decided to come back to Kerala. I suppose, particularly in view of the fact that life in Kerala is taking a turn for the worse. It's becoming more and more violent. More and more signs of social pathology are evident in Kerala. Increasing crime rate, particularly sex-related crimes. The worsening political culture of India, politics gravitating towards violence, the politics of murder, as it were. The collapse in interpersonal relations, collapse in family culture, collapse in the relationship between Christian groups, between Christians and Muslims. So, an unprecedented situation exists in Kerala. Therefore, a person who is spiritually sensitive cannot be indifferent to this. And I'm glad Acharya Sri wants to address this. So, he has created a plan, and together with the plan, also a cadre of workers called Disciples of Christ for Peace, DCP, Disciples of Christ for Peace, to try and create peace, not negotiate peace, but create peace in the soil of Kerala. Now, I have said this much by way of introduction. You need to hear more from Acharya Sri, and I'm sure you will be better off for that. So, for the rest of the time, I'll keep quiet except when it becomes absolutely essential to interject with a question or two. So, Acharya Sri, why this Disciples of Christ for Peace? Why this peace initiative in Kerala? Why not somewhere else?
Good morning. Firstly, I am a Keralite. So, peace begins at home.
Very good.
So, obviously, I'm tempted or rather inspired to come back to Kerala with a major experiment of my life. In fact, the most important experiment of life. Because I've been working in different places, in different areas, and experimenting with this idea of peacemaking, which are the different dimensions of peace, what is required in each of these dimensions, And of course, I began with this economic dimension because coming from a bit of a Marxist background myself, I believe that economic life is basic and the peace must begin in the economic field.
Yeah.
I experimented with that. And then I realized it is not the real basis. Economic conditions, even if it improves, you may be a very rich man, but you are not at peace.
Yeah.
A country which is very rich is never at peace also. So it is not economic stability that brings peace. I went further onto it. Then I came to this idea of the deepest yearnings of the human heart. Some
Yes.
experiments were conducted on that. I found there are 4 yearnings of the human heart: yearning for love, acceptance, dignity, and equality. And unless these are satisfied, no one is at peace. Now, how to satisfy these things? And that is where perhaps the law of the land or the constitution of the country, this cannot help. But ultimately, I find that peace has to begin from within.
Yeah.
There is a spiritual dimension of peace which cannot be enforced through law or courts of justice.
Absolutely.
It has to have a inner root within our own being.
Yes.
And in that process, I discovered the living spirit of Christ as something like a source within from which we can draw this peace.
Yeah.
And Jesus himself says, I give you my peace I give you, not like the world gives.
Yes.
Don't be afraid and don't be worried. So that peace which liberates us from all worries and all fears.
Yeah.
So that kind of a peace. So, and that is a very dynamic peace, not a static peace, not a stagnant peace, but very dynamic and creative.
Yeah.
And here one has to be always be creatively involved within oneself and with the society, various dimensions of society. So I've been working at different levels, different dimensions, and I found these are all interconnected.
Yes.
Because the whole life is one interrelated organic whole.
Absolutely.
So the economic, political, religious, ecological, education, all these dimensions are interrelated. And these are all in a way related to our own inner being.
Yeah.
So we are in a way a network, like Jyot Kapra says, creation is the interdependent organic whole in the form of network of relationship. I find that's true. And at the center of this network, I find this Christ spirit. Now, the term Christ, not confined to Jesus of Nazareth, the Christ. It's Christ consciousness, like Paramahamsa Yogananda speaks about that. It is the Kodastha Chaitanya, the primordial consciousness or the universal consciousness from which everything emerges. So that consciousness is the source from which we can draw.
So you are saying, for the sake of the viewers' clarity, you are saying that there is this primordial consciousness, divine consciousness, which finds its expression in various ages and various societies in different forms because the contexts are different, the externals are different, but the kernel, the inner content of the universal consciousness, that is the same. So if people are able to relate to that universal inner consciousness, then there's a greater chance of people living together in amity. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, in fact, see, this consciousness itself, though it cannot be very clearly defined even today, but this can be experienced. It's something like love. So we can't define love, but we can experience it. And without love, we are, miserable.
Yeah.
Similarly, the consciousness, it begins from the egocentric consciousness or the mother-centered consciousness of the child. And from there, it grows, expands to a family, then maybe a community. That way, it keeps on expanding. And finally, it is supposed to become the universal consciousness itself. So this is the evolutionary...
Let me take you up from there. It's very interesting. What you're saying now fascinates me. I'm sure it will fascinate viewers. This universal consciousness, which is a matter of our inward experience. It is not to be seen outside, out there. We see the sun and the moon and the stars, but we don't see the light of this universal consciousness. I think Jesus deals with it in a very interesting manner. Because suddenly, when you said this, a connect happened within me. That's why I thought I would intervene. But Jesus, for example, says that there is light within you. Matthew chapter 5, verses 14, 15, 16. Right? And there is a need to express that light. Usually, we do not express that light, we express darkness, the absence of that light. Right? So, Jesus' idea of peace is that if every human being can actually realize that there is light within and learn to express that light through our conduct and our way of life, through our relationships, through what we seek in this world, etc., there will be peace. But the point here is that every human being needs to develop. In fact, spiritual growth is nothing but growth in the ability to express this inner light through action. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. And then Jesus says, you are the light of the world. And before that, Jesus said, I am the light of the world. And then Jesus says, I am the peace. Right? So there's a connection. So therefore, unless and until individuals grow inwardly, they will not be able to live in peace or be agents of peace. They won't even be able to accept the gift of peace.
Yeah.
Because Jesus talks about that also. When he looks at Jerusalem and he cries over it, saying, oh Jerusalem, you are unwilling to accept matters concerning your peace. It's not that peace is not available. It is that peace is not acceptable to you.
No, actually, this seed of light, it is the seed of divinity in each one of us.
Absolutely.
Now, all our effort in spiritual growth is essentially to make this light glow more and more and more,
Yes.
so that it becomes a light of the world.
Yeah.
Like Jesus said, I am the light of the world.
Yeah.
So, we also must become like that. Or in other words, another Christ-like person, being a universal light. So this is the process of evolution of human consciousness. And this happens only through labor of love, work.
Yeah.
Only that is which expands your love. If you don't have that labor of love, this light does not expand. It remains dormant.
Yeah.
And then the darkness, selfishness, pride, greed, all these things consume it. And you remain in a dark stage. So the Guru, the one touches you first, is the one who shows you this seed in you and just liberates that seed from this thing.
Absolutely.
So that you are able to grow.
Yes.
And he himself becomes a model for you. So encountering Christ in my life has made all the difference in my life. Had I not encountered Christ, perhaps I would not have thought in these lines. So I found this Christ consciousness is a gift of God to humanity to enable humankind to grow from that primitive stage of being to that cosmic or divine stage of being.
So when the inner consciousness, which is the spiritual light, the divine element present within us, is given full play, free play, then we ourselves become peace. It's not that you are waiting for somebody to create peace so that we can benefit from it.
Yeah,
we become peace ourselves. That is the inner peace that you refer to.
Yeah.
And if there is that inner peace in the members of a community, then there is a good ground, a solid ground to believe that community will live in peace. But here, I'm reminded of a Chinese proverb. I think it is attributed to Confucius. I'm not very sure about it. But certainly it is a proverb of Chinese origin. It says that if there is light in the soul, there will be love in relationships. If there is love in relationships, there will be harmony at home. If there is harmony at home, there will be law and order in the society. And if there is law and order in the society, there will be peace in the world.
Yeah.
So this proverb actually connects the two things that you mentioned,
Because these are
Peace within and peace without.
these are universal things. We already discovered this. It
Yes.
never changes.
Yes, yes.
So whether Confucius discovered it, or Socrates discovered it, or
Yeah.
Jesus discovered, or Gandhi discovered it,
Yeah.
they only discovered the truth which is
Absolutely.
existing there. And all of us are supposed to be discovering it and using it.
Yeah.
It is given to us.
Yeah. So the crucial thing, as Jesus said, is to discover the light within. The light within.
So in that process, the light within expresses as love among you.
Yeah.
So light is the beginning, love is the expression.
Yes.
And to carry on the process, we need the energy, the strength, which comes from the spirit.
Yes.
So these three work together, the light, the love, and the spirit. It is the interaction of this that enables us to expand in consciousness and become a peaceful person and a peacemaker. Only a peaceful person can be a peacemaker. Now, unless you have peace within, you cannot be an effective instrument of peace.
Yes.
in the world.
Can we now move on to peace without? That is peace
Yeah.
in the
Now,
external world.
Yeah, see, my thought was that peace begins in the external world with economic justice, but I found no. Then there's a social dimension to it, emotional dimension to it,
Yeah.
ecological dimension to it very much today. So all these are interrelated. So you cannot work in all the areas
Yes.
where you have to see your talent and gift. Now, I'm not much of a musician.
Yeah.
So if I perform music, people will get bored of that.
Yeah.
That is not my call. So similarly, each one has a specific area where one can focus and bear fruit.
Absolutely.
So that we must understand and what is our area. And that is where a guru can help me. So if I have found such gurus in my life who have been able to show me what exactly that my areas of mission can be. And I've been trying to focus on that and gradually come into that. Of course, I deviated because there is attraction of the world, there is the ego, forcing us to certain things, which all deviates us from the core of the mission. So this has happened to me a number of times. Last 42 years I've been in this path. But when I look back today with all these experiences, I'm able to say one thing very, very clearly, that inner peace and outer peace are interrelated, like two sides of a coin. Just inner peace alone, without the outer peace, will not sustain.
Right.
Outer peace without the inner peace will not sustain. So this balance has to be found. This is where we are social being with a social commitment.
Right.
Now, unfortunately, many of us are afraid of a social commitment. We are always self-centered. I, mine, and that kind of a thing. And a social responsibility that we have to the society, to the nature. For example, this Mother Earth, what sustains us? The oxygen we breathe, without which we cannot even live for 5 minutes, it comes from the trees, the photosynthesis. And we destroy the trees without any consideration. So the whole earth,
But the
Earth,
trees cannot generate oxygen without the sun.
yeah.
So there is this whole
all
interconnected
all
network.
interconnected. So that, some years ago I read a small book, The Economy of Permanence, by one Dr. J.C. Kumarappa. I found it's so much of that interconnectedness, the nature and the weather, the conditions and our livelihood. So one has to be conscious of this, and this consciousness comes through that expanded consciousness. That from I, mine, ego consciousness, we go to we, then we go to the community, the nation, the religion, then the Mother Earth as a whole, then the Uttara Charitanam Vasudeva Kutumbakam. For the noble-hearted, the whole earth is one family, not only humankind. The animal kingdom, the plant kingdom.
Which is similar to Jesus' idea of the kingdom of God, which is absolutely universal, which has no geographic boundaries, no ethnic labels. It is absolutely universal. Now, I was thinking, in connection with the inner and outer dimensions of peace, the profundity, the simple, subtle profundity of Jesus Christ in his vision for peace, having referred to the inner light, which needs to find expression through your actions. so that your personality itself becomes light, and then he says you're the light of the world. Having said that, what he does thereafter is he goes on to talk about human relationships. The Sermon on the Mount is not about the peace within. It talks about it because the passage I refer to is also from Sermon on the Mount. Much of it is dedicated to how we relate to the world outside. If you have the light, if you have the personality of light, how will you relate to the world outside? So there, Jesus says that, for example, love your neighbor as yourself. Now, if that one principle is really implemented by everyone, there will be absolute world peace, because all wars are between neighbors. Almost every war fought in the world, and other countries may join in. Russia, Ukraine, for example. It's basically between neighbors. Now, you are not able to live peaceably with your neighbor. If that one problem can be addressed, then he talks about personal relationships. Somebody slaps you on one cheek, show the other, etc., etc., which means that a spiritually enlightened person, or one who has light within him, must walk the extra mile in maintaining and safeguarding the foundation of peace, in building on it, in spite of how others behave. Likewise, he says that if you want to worship, you must make sure that you are reconciled with your brother. If you're on your way to worship and you there realize that your brother has something against you, leave your offerings there, go and be reconciled to him, and then come back and offer your worship to God. All these teachings, the spiritual outlook on life involves what is now called secular life also. There is no distinction between private life and public life, religious life, secular life. Life is an integrated whole, and all of that is maintained by God, the light of God. And if you are able to live in harmony with that light, then there will be peace in the world. And that seems to be...
There is one precondition that Jesus says, before you love your neighbor as you love yourself, there is the first thing. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, all your strength, all your soul.
Absolutely.
Then love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Absolute love.
Now, this, unless you have that love of God within first, you are not able to love others. So much so, it can be experienced. This love comes to us from God first, so that we are able to love others. If you don't have the source, connectivity with that source, you will not be able to give anything like that. For example, the light will not shine unless you connect it to the electric source. This reality is something very important. That's why Jesus said, eternal life is knowing the one true God and Jesus Christ whom He has sent. Now, knowledge of this one true God is the biggest challenge of human race from the beginning. And it's an evolving reality, because God is so infinite. Human consciousness or human intellect cannot really comprehend it. As we grow, we are able to see something more, but we cannot see the whole. So this reality is very important. And then what happens that many religions have an outdated view of God to which they cling, and then that creates conflict, because you have gone beyond that, but you're carrying a dead weight with us. This concept of God is often a dead weight today. And we need to understand God in the light of the evolved consciousness.
I sometimes argue that no religion has an adequate or complete understanding of God.
Surely.
But each religion insists that its understanding of God is absolute and final. And therefore, the net result is the butchery of God. Religions make a mincemeat of God by chopping up God into small pieces, taking away one piece each, and then claiming that this is the only God. And that is the main reason for the chronic tension, conflict, and war between religions.
In fact, the whole thing comes from a lack of understanding or lack of expansion of consciousness. So we refuse to grow and we cling on to something past and small,
Yeah.
and claim this to be the absolute,
Yeah.
because we have not grown beyond that. We are not seen beyond it. It's like the frog in the well. So every religion is something like a frog in the well, you can say. They claim the absolute monopoly on the truth, on God, things like. But the moment you come out of this well, you find the world is totally different.
Yeah.
And same way, the understanding of God, as you liberate yourself from the past, understanding of God and look into a new reality,
Yeah.
you find this God is all pervasive within
That's
you,
right.
among you. And some of our rishis and sages had this understanding that Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam.
Right.
That means God, lives here, there, everywhere.
Yeah. Now, the idea of God brought into the political context or the social context, according to Immanuel Kant, means two things. I found that very interesting. And this is in his small book titled Perpetual Peace, Perpetual Peace by Immanuel Kant. He says, for example, traditionally we associate God with two fundamental civic values, namely freedom and equality. God is the fountainhead of freedom, right? But freedom is not the charity of politicians, but the gift of God. That's my fundamental article of faith. Secondly, God does not practice partiality, as the Bible affirms, and to him all people are equally acceptable, worthwhile, and God cares for all. So equality. Now, Kant argues that only a society which upholds these two values, namely the freedom of all and the equality of all, can live in peace within itself. Secondly, he argues that only a society which is living in peace based on these two principles of freedom and equality can live in peace with other countries. So, national condition affects international relations. And that's Kant's insight.
Yeah.
I think it's a very valuable insight.
Yeah, in fact, what Immanuel Kant says, there's truth in it.
Yeah.
But then what happens? What is the source of freedom? This is where you come into the concept of love. It's a love that is the source of freedom.
Yeah. The source of love itself is God. God is love.
Now, God is love, yes. So that is where understanding the one true God. But then God is not love alone. God is light also. God is spirit also.
God is truth. God is justice. God is compassion.
Comes into. Yeah. So, to my understanding, see, the beginning of experience of God is something like God is light. And the expression of God experience is through love.
No, Swamiji, that's fine. The point is, the problem with the spiritual dialogue is that everything becomes abstract. What Kant is doing is, he is rendering the abstract concrete. Now, when you say that God is light, and that idea is absolutely fine, but when it is made a concrete reality, it becomes, the light of God becomes justice, truth, equality, brotherhood, the caring attitude.
They will express us in different ways.
That is right. Therefore, these are the practical outworkings of an abstract idea. Therefore, Kant says that while the spiritual insight is absolutely clear, and he draws his insights from the spiritual world and translates that into political terms and practical course of action. So, therefore, I think in the Kerala context, when we talk about trying to make peace, as it were, or laying the foundation for peace, we need to have a clear idea as to how to proceed with this very important spiritual mission in a practical way, a course of action, a program of action.
So program of action has to have three dimensions.
Yes.
One is a dimension through which the grace or the connectivity is established, a dimension through which that is expressed in the society, a dimension through which the whole the creation is brought into it. So, for example, we have a program called Jaiva Samardhi program. That means to work with the nature to bring out organic food and living in harmony with nature, and working with nature, because man is alienated from nature so much. Today, many people do not know that food we eat come from the nature. Like if you ask a child, where do you get the rice from? It's a departmental store. That kind of thing, because they're not in touch with
Milk comes from fridge.
yes. So this kind of thing. So we are alienated, and we are all so much busy with so many other things. We have lost touch with the source. So go back to the nature. So this program, Jaiva Samadhi or Jaiva Samartha Kerala, and say for example, our Devakripa Ashram, we promote this program very simple way. We get the seeds of organic vegetables and distribute it to some families and ask them to grow it, and then send us some WhatsApp photographs and maybe give a certificate and things like. So this kind of thing is going on, Jaiva Samartha Keralam program. Then the other one is, we have also this Panchayati Raj democracy we promote, based on the Panchayati Raj Nagarpalika Act.
Empowerment of the people.
People without this political party involvement in everything. Because party is not a fullness of democracy. It is only the first step in democratic process, the party-based elections. And that can take you maximum to government of the party, by the party, for the party. And no party can get more than 30 or 35% of votes. So, and coalitions are the same thing. So, democracy, party system is only a stepping stone. We have to go beyond that. Unfortunately, we have this Panchayati Raj Nagarpalika Act passed by the Parliament of India, which gives us an opportunity. So I always feel Kerala, being a fertile political ground, perhaps could develop this true democracy, first time in the world.
So you're saying that in order to develop true democracy, we have to first lay the foundations for a culture of peace. And I'm in full agreement with you. I have to bring this discussion, very interesting discussion, stimulating discussion, to a close. In conclusion, I would like to share with the viewers a very interesting fact. Jesus is universally recognized as the Prince of Peace. But a couple of things that he said in this context, I think, is extremely important and worth remembering. First, he said, "My peace I give to you, but not as the world gives, but my peace I give to you." What is the difference between the approach of the world to peacemaking or peace negotiations and Jesus' idea and practice of peace? That's a huge subject in itself. I will not be able to address that issue, obviously, in this limited time available to us. The second thing, and that's what really I want to emphasize in conclusion, it is a crucified Jesus Christ who says, "Peace be unto you." It's not the Christ before the cross. And this struck me a few years ago with extraordinary force. Please remember, it's a crucified Jesus Christ alone who says to the disciples, "Peace be unto you. Peace be with you." That is to say that there is a price to be paid for peace.
Yes.
Everybody readily understands that there is a price, a huge price, a back-breaking price to be paid for war. And people are very happy to pay that price, right? But nobody is willing to pay the price for peace.
Yeah.
I remember organizing a seminar in Delhi on the spiritual dimensions of peace. And I invited various religious leaders to come and speak. It was a very well-attended national seminar. And I still remember the words of Swami Agnivesh. He said, among the founders of religions, only two persons promoted peace in a very specific manner. He said, Lord Buddha and Jesus Christ.
Sure.
But between them, it was Jesus and Jesus alone who paid the price for peace. That's what he said. Who paid
Price for peace.
And Christians even today don't realize that the cross is the price paid for peace.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the macabre history of Christianity, Emperor Constantine used the cross as a symbol of war. And from that day begins the most lamentable aberration of Christianity. And that aberration can be seen coloring the history of Western Christianity all through the ages down to our own times. And it's high time that people realized that, the original, the pure spiritual life that Jesus Christ embodied is to be now rediscovered in truth, in fidelity to the human condition.
That
Guided-
Kristu Marga has to be rediscovered.
Guided by something other than the spirit of the world. So I'm very grateful to Ajay Rizvi for giving us this time and sharing his valuable insights and his concerns. And together, we wish him very well and all the very best in this very